Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I realize there's a lot going on today, and I understand the members have an awful lot of visitors that they want to talk to, but I'd appreciate the couple minutes that we're allowed to speak today in response to the governor's budget address. Before I approach this podium today, I was reflecting on the last 2 years and the struggles that this General Assembly had and the challenges that we had to overcome to get a final budget passed on time with no new taxes. Those challenges often trace back to unsustainable spending from the previous administration and a subpar economic circumstances. Those factors forced us to take as much more measured and cautious approach as we began the budget process. Many Pennsylvania residents were frustrated and did not understand why we needed to change course from the path set by the previous administration. It was evident that continuing down the same road would have led to higher taxes, fewer jobs, and a stifled economy here in Pennsylvania. Resetting our budget baseline was the story of the past two budgets. We had to iron out the crippling effect of years of spending growth beyond any controls of inflation or population growth. We also had to readjust our state budget to eliminate the distortion caused by the spending of over $7 billion of federal stimulus funds as if they were a recurring revenue source. I know some of my colleagues are tired of hearing me talk about federal stimulus money, but you cannot talk about the spending without mentioning where that spending came from. Today, we are starting from a better place. Many challenges still remain, but the starting point for these budget negotiations are in a better place because of this administration and because of the majority members of the House and the Senate. We understood how dangerous and unsustainable the course was. We also are starting at a better place this year because here in Pennsylvania, we recognize the importance of making Pennsylvania more economically competitive and the need to create an environment conducive to job growth. We took steps to keep our tax structure competitive. We implemented tort reforms like the Fair Share Act to change civil liability rules that often scared businesses away. And we encouraged new industries to come to Pennsylvania and work to save the existing jobs so Pennsylvania residents had family-sustaining jobs. One of the great stories that we heard today from the governor, and it's an amazing story because this General Assembly, on a bipartisan effort, saved 2,200 jobs, good jobs in Southeast Pennsylvania. They tell me over 10,000 jobs indirectly. And we took steps to make that happen. We would have never had that type of an investment if we did not discipline ourselves over the last 2 years. What is the result of these efforts? Today, there's over 100,000 more private sector jobs in Pennsylvania compared to when Governor Corbett first took office. Our efforts to improve our economy is working. Another initiative of this legislature and the governor is directly responsible for creating jobs in the continuation and the commitment to phasing out of the capital stock and franchise tax. Time and time again, we heard from businesses, we're not coming to Pennsylvania. Why? We can't afford that punitive tax called the capital stock and franchise tax. Companies were paying tax here in Pennsylvania even when they were working at a net operating loss. I can tell you as a small businessman, you can't do that. We should not be taxing businesses out of the state and taxing businesses from coming into Pennsylvania. I applaud the governor and I applaud this General Assembly for keeping our promises to make Pennsylvania competitive so businesses will want to come here. All of you know how difficult this economy has been on individuals, small businesses, and especially our local governments. It is a remarkable achievement to see this type of job growth during such a difficult economic time. Like all budgets presented to the General Assembly, this proposal serves as a blueprint for negotiations that will unfold over the next several months. But at first glance, there are some very bright spots in this proposal. The governor talked about the additional $90 million in support for basic education, making this proposed amount the most state tax dollars for education ever. This investment will certainly continue to return huge dividends in preparing our students to enter an ever-changing workforce. We also do a great service to our younger children by providing an additional $4.5 million for pre-K education programs and give the opportunities for these students to get a head start on learning. I am also very encouraged by the fact that we are not looking at any proposed decreases to higher education. There is no question that the state support for higher education makes higher education affordable and accessible for our working families. These initiatives pursued by this administration and this General Assembly to focus on tying the post-secondary education to a career track that results in a job upon completion of their education is a laudable effort and one that we should support. This provides us with a better return on our investment and on a taxpayer's investment in higher education, and better serves the employers of Pennsylvania. I'm also glad we continue the efforts that this chamber advocated for last year to reduce the waiting list for individuals with intellectual and physical disabilities. An additional $20 million to help further reduce the waiting list is an effort we can all stand by and stand for. We owe these residents of Pennsylvania that promise. In addition to these components of the budget proposal, there are certainly some items that we need to address in negotiations. I remain committed to providing funding for the support of programs in the Department of Health for specific diseases that many Pennsylvanians suffer from: ALS, epilepsy, diabetes, and others, in which an investment in prevention and research will ultimately provide for a significant return on investment. Pennsylvania residents should also be glad to know that this proposal takes public safety seriously and provide for 3 new state trooper cadet classes and put 290 more troopers on our roads and highways. What should even be more encouraging is that we can do all of this in a responsible way that increases spending at a rate well below the Taxpayer Bill of Rights Index and provides for responsible and sustainable budget growth. While we are beginning budget negotiations at a much better place, we still must be cautious about the pitfalls that caused problems in the past. We must be careful on not counting on revenue that we don't have. We must also continue to ensure that our budget only grows at responsible levels that we will be able to sustain. We should also remember that passing a responsible budget on time is the most important thing we do as state legislators. We need to be vigilant in our review of proposals to tie other major policy issues to a budget in a way that could cause uncertainty about the foundation of a budget we ultimately must enact. I look forward to working in a bipartisan manner to craft a budget that helps Pennsylvania to continue along the path of growth and prosperity we have set over the past 2 years, and I look forward to working with Chairman Mark Kozik and the rest of my colleagues of this House to put together another on-time budget with no new taxes. Thank you.